Our theme for this year's event, Connected Through Service, was inspired by the work that has been done and is being done by Lions, Leos, and members of the United Nations, specifically over this past year. Despite the challenges we have faced with borders being closed and a large part of the population feeling isolated and alone, members of our organizations have continued to find solutions and continue to stay connected to one another and to serve those in need. It is with that in mind that we organized our panel discussion for today. In a moment, our panel moderator, Lion Representative to UN Women, past District Governor Jackie Williams, will introduce our panelists who have continued to serve and lead during the pandemic. But first, let's look at a brief history of Lions clubs and the United Nations.
To San Francisco came 1,400 representatives from 46 nations.
In 1945, Lions leaders were among representatives who met to help establish the non-governmental organization section of the United Nations. And they threw their full support behind the new organization, calling upon clubs to support it as well. Lions Clubs International underscored its commitment to a certain and lasting peace for the world in 1946, when International President Pierce delivered greetings to the Paris Peace Conference, which officially marked the end of World War II.
When they left, I said, there goes our Lions International statesman working for world peace.
The first Secretary General of the United Nations, Trygve Lie, thanked Lions for their good wishes for the successful outcome for the whole work of the United Nations. In 1947, the United Nations granted Lions consultative status with the UN Economic and Social Council. In 1988, Lions created the International Peace Poster Contest. Mustafa Tawukji, who grew up in war-torn Beirut, Lebanon, was the first contest winner. Since 1988, millions of children worldwide have participated. The International Grand Prize winner is honored at Lions Day with the United Nations.
That's really helped me to develop a more worldly view.
Since 2011, students who are blind and visually impaired have also had a chance to express their thoughts on peace through the Lions International Essay Contest.
For me, peace feels like freedom from ignorance or conflicts such as war.
Lions and the United Nations continue to work together to improve lives and further peace around the world. Lions support the UN Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals to combat poverty, hunger, disease, environmental crises, and more. As citizens of the world, Lions respond to one need, one community, one life at a time. In the years, decades, and centuries ahead, Lions will continue to unite in friendship and serve as community and world leaders to sow seeds of peace at home and around the world.
Peace.
Shanti.
Thank you, PIPL. It's good to hear from you. And so my name is Jackie Williams. I am a past district governor, and I live here in Brooklyn, New York, not too far from the UN. And I'm delighted to be able to host this panel discussion with you today and to be able to hear from voices both here locally in the Northeast, as well as across the US and certainly internationally. We're delighted to have four very special guests joining us to share in this conversation about what it means to be connected through service. Joining us today will be past Council Chair Jodi Burmester from Wisconsin, and she's known, in addition to all of her good work and her experiences, to be a host for what is called the Burmester Bar. We also have Dave Roberts joining us today, and he is serving as the Lions appointed representative to the United Nations Council of Organizations, and he serves in Connecticut and all around. And so we welcome Lion Dave with us today. And then we have with us also the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs Strategic Planning and Communication Services Section Public Information Officer, Michał Szymanski. And so we're looking forward to his point of view and his thoughts and perspective on what the pandemic has meant from the perspective of the UN. And finally, we also have Lion's Own, Soyum Shah of Kenya. And she's certainly bringing a lot of information and a sense of what the international experience has been like over the past 12, 13 months now. And so we're definitely looking forward to hearing from her as well. And so here we start, and I'm going to begin with a question. We were looking at where we are today with respect to the pandemic and all of the issues that have stemmed as a result of this worldwide crisis that we've been living through since last year. And so as a result of that, I'm going to start off by asking a question of PCC Jodi and seeing if we can relate some of these topics as we go along. And so with that, I'd ask PCC Jodi, how do you see our organization changing? And I would ask you to think about that in terms of three levels: culturally, productively in terms of service, and certainly in terms of communication. And I certainly speak to your strength in terms of the communication pieces and efforts that you've been working on this past year.
You know, I think this last year we've learned so much as Lions about what it means to live in a virtual world. We've propelled well over a decade in just 12 short months, learning about Zoom and learning how to teach and train and learn from one another has been fantastic. And I think we've got to hold on to that as we move forward. We have to find ways to bridge the gap for those that don't have the ability to get online and participate. But for those of us who do, it's really an awesome opportunity for us to take what we've learned and allow more people to participate in things they never could before. And when you look at it from a club standpoint, when we're doing trainings now, we're seeing people participate that have never participated before because either there was a barrier to them participating due to cost, time, or just distance alone. So keeping going with this online training and online connecting is vital going forward. The other piece of it I think that's really been eye-opening is I've been a Lion for a long time, and I've had the opportunity to participate in so many trainings and conventions and forums, which have been phenomenal. And I always felt part of the global family. But because of the pandemic and us being able to connect virtually, I've never felt this connected before in my entire life. I've been to South Africa. I've been to the Norwegian countries and the Swedish countries and all around the globe, learning from everyone else and seeing how things are done. And I think that's a gift that we need to take from this pandemic and build on going forward.
Thank you. Joining us today is our one of our agencies that we connect with through the United Nations. And so, Michał, I will ask you to share with us a little bit about the pandemic, the experience of this pandemic, and the work that you all are doing with respect to the Sustainable Development Goals.
Sure. Thank you very much, Jackie. Well, first thing that we have to understand is this pandemic has been a total tragedy. It has been a tragedy not only in terms of health and the actual deaths caused by the virus, but it has also triggered a crisis, a social crisis, an economic crisis, a humanitarian crisis, and a human rights crisis. And the Sustainable Development Goals that my department specifically works on achieving and on achieving them for all have been set back by years, and in some cases even decades. So already before the pandemic, the goals were off to a slow start. We weren't on track to achieving them by 2030. And the pandemic has just made a huge dent in our efforts. Just to quote a few examples, we are now in the worst recession we've seen in 90 years. The equivalent of 114 million full-time jobs have been lost, and around 120 million people are expected to fall back into extreme poverty. And that's the first time the extreme poverty has grown since 1998, so for over 20 years. Another crisis is the education crisis. UNICEF estimates that 168 million children have had their schools closed for the entire last year. So it has been just a very acute crisis across the whole board of the SDGs and sustainable development. So what we now are trying to do is, instead of revising the goals or scaling down ambition, we propose the exact opposite, scaling up the ambition. Because as one former colleague at my department used to say, you don't build a lighthouse for a shiny day, you build it for a storm. And we are in a perfect storm of social, economic, humanitarian, and health crisis. And the SDGs are our way out of it. They are the light that show us the way how to build back better. And we just had a report come out recently that estimates the global response to the pandemic. Countries spent on it, on various stimulus packages, around $16 trillion. And if that's an unimaginable number, as it is for me, it's around 1/5 of the world's GDP, 1/5 of the entire economic output of the world has been spent reacting to this pandemic. Now, if this money is spent equitably and on sustainable green initiatives, it's a game changer. And we believe that this response to the pandemic has to be guided by the Sustainable Development Goals. And this will lead to recovering much better from the pandemic and still can put us on track back to achieving these ambitious goals by 2030.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a really interesting response in terms of your statements about stepping up the goals and increasing the intensity with which you're pursuing those goals. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to ask Dave Roberts, our second VDG, our second Vice District Governor, to elaborate a little bit more on that point as he sees it from his connection through the Council of Organizations and his work as our representative from the Lions Clubs to that organization.
Well, since I became the representative to the United Nations Council of Organizations on behalf of Lions Clubs International, I've learned that we are truly connected by service around the world. And here, from my vantage point, one of the things I try to do is share some local experiences. And one of the good things here in Connecticut that happened prior to the pandemic is that Lions Clubs International sponsored a seminar here for Connecticut and Massachusetts Lions on how to establish new specialty clubs and specialty branches. And that was really a game changer, I believe, because out of that seminar, they taught us, look where there are unmet needs. And the pandemic then came, but we looked. And because of that, so much has resulted. In just a couple of examples, in Massachusetts, we launched the Southeastern Massachusetts Paws of Comfort Lions Club. In Connecticut, we launched 2 new Nepalese Americans, one a Lions Club and one a Leo's Club. And then in my own home club, which about a decade ago was actually going to close, they are now at a plus 40 new members. So we're at 67 members since the pandemic began. And these are things that we learned from Lions Clubs International, the tools that they gave us. And people say, well, how did you do that? How do you get 40 new members during a pandemic? And we said, focus on Lions core issues. These are global core issues, so it doesn't matter whether you're in Kenya, in Switzerland, or in the United States. One of them was food insecurity. I come from a very small town of 3,600 people where we now have a club of 67 members. The head of the town, we don't call it a mayor here, we call it a first selectman. He designated the Lions Club as the coordinator for families facing food insecurity. So we've organized 9 food box distribution events. We've distributed over 25,000 pounds of food and milk. We stock the micro food pantry. We work with our local community food pantry, and we even deliver groceries to shut-in senior citizens. But the second thing that this seminar taught us was senior citizens was one of the areas, and so we launched a senior citizen branch Lions Club. It now has 11 members. The other branch club that we launched was focused on service dogs. And the nonprofit here in this area is called Educated Canines Assisting with Disabilities. And we have now grown that branch club to 23 new members. And we do a lot of activities. So just like Mihao talked about the sustainable growth initiatives, making sure that we're focused on this in my work with the Council of Organizations, whether we're talking food insecurity, whether we're talking about diabetes, environment, whatever the global challenge is, including these service dogs, which are matched with people with physical, mental disabilities, or veterans that are faced with PTSD, we saw a need. We are now the volunteer arm for this 25-plus-year-old nonprofit. Again, at 23 new members, and we grow almost daily. So I think that these are things that are replicable anywhere Lions are located.
That is very impressive, your growth. And I can't help but ask you a follow-up question to that. And do you believe that, well, you must have quite a strong social media presence, and in addition to the physical, the in-presence in the community. But what do you think has been most effective in terms of being able to grow in that rapid manner and with that intensity about special interests that the community needs to address?
Yeah, well, again, I am so pleased that Lions Club International has offered us virtual tools. You know, one, we're going to hear about the Burmester Bar, possibly, which is a great social one. We also have Lions Virtual, and they allow us to do virtual events. I know many clubs in my district are now having what we call hybrid meetings, and some people come in person and they're socially distanced wearing masks. Others participate via either Zoom or GoToMeeting or some type of virtual platform. I know our Council of Organizations meets by Zoom currently, but I think it's important that when you look at all the different tools that are available for growing, whether it's Lions or Leos, because we've launched 2 cyber Lions clubs in Connecticut, 1 cyber Leos club in Connecticut. We try to have impactful service. And when you offer impactful service to people, they come and see what you're working on, and then they want to join Lions. So much of our growth has come from our different service offerings, and then they say, we would like to join Lions. And of course, right now, through the end of this Lions year, June 30th, there's no entrance fee. So all they have to do is write that 1 check for your annual dues. So we found it, despite this horrific pandemic that we're in, it has really been for us a win-win. No entrance fee. It's given us impactful service, many of it focused on the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, but it's really helped us. And I think Lions Clubs International actually had the tools, and what I hope all our attendees here at LDUN today learn is that there are so many tools if you take advantage of those tools.
Absolutely. And you just make me feel very excited and hopeful for many of our clubs and our districts across the world. And obviously, that's it means that as we emerge from the pandemic, we're seeing greater opportunities and greater ways to serve. With that, I would ask Soyum to pick up our conversation, talk a little bit about the theme for today's event, Connected Through Service. When you hear those words, is there something that you think about in that relates to your experience, both as a zone working with clubs, but also in terms of the general experience of the Lions in your area at this point in time?
Well, thank you, Jackie, for that question. First and foremost, I must say that the pandemic has only made Kenya a lot stronger while connecting through service. And this is by partnerships with various groups and enhancement of Lions and Leos through service projects. And finally, advocating for everyone to share their voices as much as possible. Connected Through Service has also allowed us to think beyond our limitations and find new innovative ideas to help us serve our fellow community members. And this has also embraced diversity. Being a zone chairperson, I've taken this pandemic as an opportunity to see how we can create more specialty clubs. I was a charter member of the Lions Club of Nairobi Phoenix, which was specialized in diversity. And since I'm an ambassador and I'm so passionate about specialty clubs, I feel that this is a way we can show and we can showcase our voices and help others to do the same in realizing the opportunities around us. I would like to share a story with you of a model that I'm trying to use, that here we have been trying to, with my members, we've been trying to identify new clubs and people with passion. We had found people in our club who found people who are very passionate about literacy. So we're trying to charter a club about setting libraries in school, and we have another club that is working with pediatric cancer or children suffering with cancer. Like this is the model I'm using in trying to advocate all the young Leos and Lions around the world to share the same passion in order to finding and identifying the right path for them to join Lions. In addition to that, the most important thing during the pandemic is bridging gaps and bridging perceptions to generation gaps. So I'm advocating for youth in the right way to be able to share their passion, share their voices, for also our elder generation to hear us and to understand what we want to change. And this is the only way that I believe the future of Lionism is going to help us grow. So during the pandemic, there's a few insights of what we've been doing, and I can only assure you that in the next coming year, it's not going to stop, it's only going to grow.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Quick question as a follow-up. You described quite an interest in youth and youth development. What are the youth sharing with you as their feedback about the Lions experience and volunteering through serving?
So you would be really shocked to know that as much as Lions do around the world, we're known to do a lot of service projects, but the voices have not been heard. So the fact that we're trying to advocate for Special Olympics, so children with disability, or what the challenges the youth are facing, or talking about young women and young men and the challenges that they're going through, and the mental health effects that they go through. How are we trying to overcome those in a positive manner, but also using innovation and creativity? Because the tool is, and the key is, to connect with them. If we don't find the right means to connect with them, then how are we ever going to be able to understand them? The most important thing that millennials must learn is gratitude. A lot of millennials are spoiled. And because of that, it is really important for us to connect with them in a way we can advocate so they can actually see it, see what they're doing, hear it from other millennials. We have fantastic Leos around the world. We have fantastic young lions around the world. They just need to be able to share their voice and connect with others on topics that interest them. And trust you, Jackie, in the past 7-8 months, this tool has worked for me. And what more, I've gotten more youth and Leo interested in all the service projects that we have. And last but not least, just to add in, it's also the end users, the end people, the people we serve. Have you ever heard of what someone who's disabled goes through? It's easy to do something, but have you ever heard the story? I think storytelling also connects people. So that is something that we're also doing, that we're trying to help in sharing voices of regular people who have problems or issues. And we're trying to tell the world that this is the actual problem, hearing it from their mouth. And this is such a great tool to share voices. And that has been my big passion.
Very good, very good. I appreciate hearing those comments. I'm going to turn to Michal to connect us a little bit more in terms of your response. Michal, I think that as in your agency and in your experience, you've mentioned or may have had the experience of talking about the digital divide and education and how we, what steps we can take to move us forward, both in terms of communication and in terms of addressing services and much needed services on the local and community levels.
Yes, thank you, Jackie. That's a very, very important question because this pandemic, as we all see, has changed fundamentally the way we connect. And it's been a huge shift in mentality to online working, online schooling, online shopping, online practically all of our life's daily activities shifted online. But when we talk about it, too often in the narrative, we omit that half of the world's population are offline. They cannot even access internet. I think the latest estimates is around 3.7 billion people who do not have access to internet. So I do believe the world is shifting online, and this is inevitable. But as we do that, we have to ensure that we leave no one offline. to leave no one behind. So if you think of schooling, for example, as schools and teaching and education shifted online, some 47% of the world's children couldn't do that. So for them, when the schools closed, they remained closed. Their education was closed. And this resulted in a lost year of education for them. So my department, what we are working on is advocating and helping governments around the world to bring everybody across the world online and to leave no one behind. And it is estimated that it would cost some $430 billion to bring everyone online by 2030. Well, this seems like a big cost, but it's marginal when you compare it to the 16 trillion we've spent on just mitigating this crisis that the pandemic has caused. So this should be a top priority for the world now, because the pandemic has only sharpened the divides and inequalities that already existed in the world. And if we allow the digital divide to become the new enhancer of inequalities and the divide between the haves and the have-nots, then we are going into a sharply diverging world, and we just cannot allow ourselves to do that. It's in everyone's interest to bring everyone online.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we are addressing that in so many ways, starting first with education for our Lions. Past Council Chair Jodi, in terms of communicating and providing sort of a sense of ease and comfort, so to speak, for our Lions, based on your efforts this past year with what I hear is called the Burmester and other opportunities, how do you see training and education reaching the Lions at the local levels and club levels, and the impact that our experiences are allowing us to see and to benefit from going forward?
Great question, Jackie. I mean, when we look at where we were a year ago, Lions have really launched forward a decade or more in our acceptance of technology this last year. Zooming is a normal thing for us now. Mm-hmm. We take our trainings online, we do meetings online, we're doing service projects online and fundraisers online. So I think that as you look at what's happened, the big change, not only that, has been that traditionally all our training has come from Lions Clubs International. There's been local training that added a local flair to it, but you really didn't have a cohesive network or a way to reach out for training beyond your local area and beyond international. With the pandemic, the silver lining has been that all of a sudden we're connected in ways we never have been before. Whether you are a member of the Global Lions Forum on Facebook and you go out and you pose a question, they've got 8,000 Lions from across the globe that are there to help answer the question with their personal knowledge and their personal experience. Whether you can go attend multiple district conventions and district conventions anywhere in the world and be inspired by the amazing work our fellow Lions are doing and learn from them and take it back to your own club. And when you look at things like Lions Virtual, Lions Virtual came together to help supplement training, to have the grassroots Lions be able to share their experience. And you hear hands-on what's working for people who are awesome recruiters, what's working for clubs that are successful, what's working for all Lions from a grassroots level. So we take the framework that International has provided us and then weave the fabric of what it means to be a Lion locally and from the grassroots level. And part of the beauty of it is it's all virtual, and there's virtually no out-of-pocket cost for any of us as long as you have that connection to the internet. And that, I think, is key and is a huge piece that maybe as an association we need to start looking at as maybe one of our global service initiatives is, can we help positively impact connectivity across the globe?
United in kindness and diversity, and you move those two things together, I think really service and people and connecting people is so important. So, Jackie, you asked me about the two most important things from my perspective. And I think one is that Lions Clubs International believes it's your club, your way. We're all united as Lions and Leos, but it's your club, your way. I mentioned how just a decade ago, my own club was almost going to turn in their charter. It's a 55-year-old club. It would have been a terrible thing. But we began a process to rebuild. We did a community needs assessment. I know some Lions roll their eyes when they hear that, but basically to us, what that meant was we went out and talked to local government officials. We talked to our local chamber, which we call an economic development council here in our town. We talked to other nonprofits. We said, what are the needs that are not currently being met? Our Lions Club would like to meet those needs. So I think one important thing is it's your club, your way. Lions Clubs International gives us great tools. They give us connections to great people, but you can choose in your club what you want to do. I think the second thing when I joined Lions over 11 years ago, I was the mayor of a town in Southern California at that time. And a past international director came and interviewed me and said, we would like you to join Lions. And I said, why would you want me to join Lions? And he says, aren't you passionate about your town and making it better? And I said, yes. And he says, don't you work with a lot of volunteer groups? And I said, yes. He said, in Lions, working together, you can accomplish so much more than you can alone. So I think if I was going to give the two most important things is one, it's your club, your way. If you don't like what your club's doing, you can start another club focused on what you want that club to focus on. And really, you can accomplish, when we were a club down to 3 people versus today we're a club of 67, we work on so many different projects. We're puppy nannies. We take service dogs home for the weekend. We prepare kindness tote bags for clients that are getting matched with their service dogs. We write notes on handmade note cards that one of our Lions made. You heard Jodi mention virtual fundraisers. We make more now in one virtual fundraiser than we did in the entire year historically. We do a bingo game at our local drive-in theater. Everybody stays in their car and they play bingo in 1 hour, and we make a lot of money doing that. So there are so many things, but again, your club, your way, how do you want to do it? And really, together, you can accomplish so much more than you can alone.
Absolutely. It's very much the case. Lions Soyum, today's registration is huge on this platform, and we're very grateful to see so many Lions joining us today. If you are reflecting on your experiences, how do you think, Lion Jodi mentioned, maybe we need to be thinking about communication and connection as part of one of our initiatives in the future. And you have focused on specialty clubs and on the youth. What else might we do or attempt to do in order to increase our connection with our fellow residents, neighbors, members of our communities?
Thank you, Jackie. First and foremost is understanding the problem and understanding people. If we don't understand the problem and if we don't understand the people around us, we won't be able to assist them or know what they actually need. Sometimes when you talk about Lions and we talk about service, we think that we will go and give them free food or eyesight or help them in diabetes. But what is the sustainable goal that they need? What do they actually need? Sometimes the problem could be bigger than you or I could think, or sometimes it can be smaller than what we could even imagine. Sometimes it's really important to understand what is important. So let me explain a scenario in Kenya. It's easy to sponsor a child's education, and it's easy to get community members or even have our house help say that, please, I don't have enough money. Can you help us support my child? But then at the same time, how can I support the child if the child does not have the education material to learn from? That's a question mark.
Right.
How can I help a girl with sanitary pads if she doesn't know how to use it? Or what is the importance of educating her on why she needs to use it? What is the use of doing a diabetes check and someone is diabetic and they're not able to afford insulin or medication for a long period of time just to tick a box? No. It's all about quality, not about quantity. The most important thing is to learn and listen and identify. Some people that we've been having around the world during the pandemic are going through a lot of mental wellness issues. And a lot of them are just suffering in silence. Sometimes they just need someone to talk to. And when you talk to them, it can change a whole new world. The most important thing is sustainability and quality, not quantity. If you're going to support a family with hunger project, support them for a month or support that family for a year. What's going to happen if you support them for a meal? What are they going to do about the next meal? Here in Kenya, there's one of my projects which I'm really passionate about, and that's orphan children. We get a lot of dumpster babies, and we get a lot of children thrown on the streets, and also mothers who cannot take care of children. Those little children, we get them as small as 1 week old or 3 days old. The little babies, don't they need nutrition to feed on? It's not simple to just give them anything and everything. And so one of the things that we feel that we can do through connecting service when we talk about to help our communities, our neighbors, our people, is understanding them first. Now, if I have a neighbor next to me and her need is different to what my need, and her understanding of community service is different to mine, I have to learn to understand her in order to help her, in order to help her to understand that join Lions, we can make your needs work, and we'll be able to understand them more. But to simply just go to get members or to get youth involved without understanding how to connect with them, then it will not work for a long period of time. Mind you, if we want members, we also want them to be sustainable. Right? We want membership retention. So it's very, very important, just like what David said, we have to understand them. It's our club, our way, and we have to allow people to do what they feel right. We should not dictate them, but at the same time, if we're true leaders and if we're true people to help, let's understand them, let's correct them, let's give someone's life quality, not quantity, and let's help them to live a better life. For me, I feel that that's a strategy that we need to use to help more people around us get awareness of the work we do.
At this time, we'd like to share a couple of questions that have come through the social media platforms, and they're from our Lions across the world. So to begin, Lion Daniel Elkins from Bellevue, Delaware is asking, he's sharing a comment first. We're a global organization that serves locally in our own individual club silos of service. How do we find ways to connect to more Lions around the world to take on larger service initiatives and use the strength in numbers that we have? He's also asking if a Lion wants to serve, but their club is shut down due to the pandemic. How can they connect to global service initiatives on their own to stay connected? And so I ask any one of our Lions present to share a little perspective on those questions.
I'd like to jump in on that one. And second Vice District Governor Daniel Marney Elkins from Delaware is a tremendous Lion. He actually helped us do our virtual Lions and virtual Leos midwinter conference. And what he's asking about here is service. I think one of the things that this event is giving us is a platform that attendees can take away some things and lessons learned. And I want to just give a couple of shout outs to people, and these are people that all Lions around the world ought to connect with. One is past International Director Jerome Thompson, who is leading our North American Membership Initiative, provides a lot of virtual training. This initiative is being prototyped in other spots around the world. Here in Connecticut, we have some tremendous leaders, such as International Director Mark Lyon, our Council Chair Ev Lyon, our past Council Chair Hillary Kumnick. They have really used virtual tools in communications to move us along. In your question about service, we have found ways to serve both virtually. We just did a childhood cancer project where we actually created a collage of pictures that we posted. We took pictures of them, and then it made the local news to cheer up kids that were going through cancer treatments. We have club specialists. It's led in North America, which is United States and Canada, by past District Governor Rajan Thapa. He's the one that came and did ours, and he gave us tools where people actually went out. And so far, we've created 4 or 5 new Lions and Leo clubs just from that one event.
Just one thing I would add to that is there's a lot of cyber clubs that have popped up, cyber specialty clubs that you as a Lion can go out and search them, whether through the LCI website or go on Facebook or Google it and find a way to serve and connect with them. They are living in the virtual world of service. They may give you some ideas you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. And I just want to circle back around to one other thing. As I've been listening to everyone and so many great concepts and ideas and the amazing things Lions are doing, you know, it all circles back to service. As we look at clubs that are thriving, whether it be pre-pandemic, during pandemic, or coming up post-pandemic, the clubs that are thriving are providing worthwhile service that their community and their members believe is worthwhile. It doesn't mean we're just doing the same old park cleanup because we've done it for the last 50 years. It means going out and figuring out what those needs are, having those conversations as we've talked about. So if your club is struggling on how to come back, how do you reignite the spark of passion? You find one Lion who's got that passion and will drive you to get there. And the way you drive to get there is through service. Going back, as Dave said, doing that community assessment. I know people roll their eyes, but really all that is a conversation, for goodness sakes. Talking to people in your community that are connected about what the needs are, so then your club can find ways to meet them. And whether you're a young person or you are a more seasoned member, you didn't join to go to another meeting, for God's sakes. You joined to serve and make a difference. So if we can circle back around and focus on service and serving those needs, I think it solves a lot of our problems. Then we can just worry about tweaking things and training people up on how to brand their clubs or how to work in the online environment or raise funds online or whatever the needs might be. But it all circles back to service, and we serve.
And Jackie, I just want to comment on one thing Jodi said. Last year, under now Council Chair Ev Lyons, we launched the Northwestern Connecticut Cyber Lions Club. It is now 40 members strong, and our members come from Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Florida, and California. And the president actually lives in California. And you say, well, how do you serve? Well, what we do is put out, and I'm the guy guiding lion for that club. What we do is we put out service challenges. For example, one of our global causes is environment. So we say this month, why don't you and your family go out and pick up litter along the highway or along your stream or along your ocean, wherever you happen to be. Take pictures so we know about it and we can record it in My Lion. Or take part, go stock a food pantry in your town. So you don't have to specifically live where that club is. And that's one of the great things now about cyber clubs. And we're seeing it go. We meet virtually, but we act locally doing really impactful service projects.
Absolutely a great answer in that, it sort of frees us from the thoughts that we had and that have sometimes limited us in the ability to really reach out and touch and get involved and be connected. And along those lines, Lion Dave, I'm going to pick up a question from Lion Dawn Rice Norton from Medway, Massachusetts. She's asking if it would be nice to have a better, more formalized process to connect through service across country borders. So as you just mentioned about cyber clubs, and she's saying to connect, she's interested in talking about connecting interested clubs with resources to help with those clubs in areas where help is most needed. And should this be something that is considered? And I believe you've started to answer that question. Is there anything else that you would add to that?
Well, I think Dawn asked a great question from Medway, Massachusetts. And I think what I would say is, through the North American Membership Initiative, which is going eventually worldwide under past International Director Jerome Thompson, there are so many ways to connect people through the club specialists such as Rajan Thapar or Raj Thresha to connect people. And we're doing a connection right now between Nepal, or we're going to be between Nepal and Connecticut. When I was a district governor previously in Southern California, we had a twinning with the Philippines because in our district of Southern California, San Diego and Imperial counties, we had at that time 8 Filipino American Lions clubs. And there was a lot of synergies created across country borders. We also had a relationship with Mexico because many people wanted to go down and work on projects in Mexico, or Mexican people wanted to come up and work on projects in the United States. So I think it's really the mind's the limit. Whatever you think you would like to do. And again, the United Nations is such a great example. 75 plus years of really pulling the world together. And now the United States is really stepping back up to the plate and making sure that we focus throughout the world on needs. And that's why I'm so pleased with this relationship between Lions Club International and the United Nations. You heard Mihao talk about some of the things from information and some of the needs and technology, sustainable development growth, but there is so much we can learn from the United Nations. But there's so much the United Nations can actually learn from Lions Clubs International. Recently, past International President Al Brandel asked, how can we get the two foundations maybe focused more? Lions and our large Lions Clubs International Foundation and the United Nations Foundation. So really, the world is unlimited in possibilities. It just takes more and more people stepping up to the plate and saying, I want to serve, I want to be connected, I want to serve others and make this a better world for all.
It couldn't be said better. And I do want to come back to Mihao and ask him to join us in this part of this conversation, specifically as to what you may see, Mihao, as to cultural changes at the UN as things evolve, as we emerge from the pandemic. What impact do you see this experience having on all of us, UN included, in moving the world forward?
Thank you. Yeah, I've been just listening to all your inspiring stories from around the world of this activism surge that you're experiencing, and I think that's a big cultural change, not only at the UN but everywhere around the world. People feel the need to do something, to be a part of the solution, to get involved. And this is that's actually what makes me very hopeful about the Sustainable Development Goals and about the possibility of recovering better. Because if you can grow a club from 3 to 60 in a matter of a year, it just shows that people feel that need. And I think especially the young people, who are the youngest generation we've had in human history, and are now very active we've seen them in marches for climate change. We've seen them fighting for equality, for racial justice. They are driving this surge of activism, I think. And we, like you said, the important part, like Soyum said, is connecting with them and connecting them to each other.
I just experienced this myself. In my role with the Lions and the UN, I serve as a representative to UN Women. And during this month, they have, or in the month of March, they had completed their 2-week annual conference meeting to bring folks from all over the world to address issues of gender equality, education, certainly leadership and wellness issues. And so we registered to participate in producing a program. With that, they have had, in years past, you would have a few, maybe a few thousand folks come into New York City to participate in that. So online, they had over 25,000 registrants. Certainly overwhelming the system of the platform in terms of registration. But my point really being that we definitely have to use all that we can at this point and take advantage of this moment in history to really propel us and address issues that have been sitting and need our emphasis and our effort. Rohit Masadi of Kolkata seems to agree as well, and he asks a question: can we all, as service organizations working toward common goals, connect through service and make it a joint effort? So I'm going to turn to Soyum on this question, because we also have an office. There is an office in Kenya for the UN, and we do have individual Lions attempting to connect in Nairobi with the UN. And I don't know, Soyum, if you've had that experience or if you can speak to a little bit of that issue.
Yes, but before I go to your second part of your question, I would just like to share a little analogy of what we're speaking in now. So Mihao mentioned that they're investing 340 billion in technology for around the world for those that cannot have access to technology. Jodi and David have both expressed how technology is working in the United States and how they have a lot of cyber clubs and how virtual is impacting them positively and technology. Me sitting here in Kenya, I'm in the middle because Kenya's on the poverty line. So we have a fewer number who can have access to technology than Jodi or David in the United States. But then we have Mihao, who from the UN is willing to understand the problem, and we're trying to find a solution. So when you talk about connecting through service and joining in partnerships, this is a perfect example. You have 3 different scenarios, you have one problem, and we're all here to help in building the solution. So I just wanted to share this analogy with you. So I wanted our audience to also know this is the power of connecting through service. To answer your second question, we also have a very good relationship with the United Nations in Kenya. We have the third biggest headquarters, and we're also very fortunate that we have two of our senior and PDG, Dr. Manila, who are also the representatives to the United Nations. And I cannot tell you that the work and bridging gaps between the United Nations and the Lions that they are doing with the help of all of us is phenomenal. Just to share a very, very small example, is that Dr. Manilal and Dr. Shah, they found a problem in rural areas about how to transport medicine into counties which are around 300 kilometers plus away. So they partnered up with the United Nations, and together they worked about mobile ambulances. And something as simple as that, with a little bit of innovation, not very costly, has changed the lives of so many people in those rural areas. That is also another connection to service. So for our viewer Rohit, this is a great example of even us sitting on this platform to join partnerships with the United Nations and with other Lions from other countries and see how we can find solutions and use each person's expertise, and let's turn problems into solutions by working together with each other.
Right. Absolutely, again. And I want to thank all of you for participating today and advancing this conversation. I'm hopeful that we learned a lot from each other. We sit in different parts of the world. It would be wonderful for us to not just think we've enjoyed this experience today with about in excess of 5,000 other Lions, but that we also take it back to our different communities, our different clubs, our different even other volunteer groups in our communities. Share a little bit of the experience of what it means to be able to connect across all of our different locations and connect meaningfully. That's the point, right? We want to connect meaningfully. So again, PCC Jodi, VDG Dave, Mihaus Szymanski, Zone Soyum. It has been a pleasure. Certainly when you visit New York, we expect to hear you call on us. And I certainly will be calling on you when I visit your areas and your communities as well. At this time, I believe that we are going to turn the program back over. We've talked quite a bit, so we're going to turn the conversation back over to PIPL. Thank you.